So you get the kids all in bed?
Yep, all set. They went to a first grade social activity that involved bouncy castles, and so they're both wiped.
Bedtime was quick today.
Super easy.
How old are your children, Jason?
So I've got a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 22-month-old, and my wife is pregnant. So
okay,
I got my hands full.
Yeah. So I have 5 children. Mine are much older. I have much more gray hair than you do, but I have a 22-year-old, a 20, almost 21, 19, 11, and 9. So it's a lot of work. So you're getting there. You're getting there, and it's a lot of work. It really is. I'm impressed. Did he freeze up or did? Oh, go ahead. Say that again.
Yeah, I just said it's worth it.
Yeah, it is worth it. Yep. I'm surprised you have any time to do all the things that you do, frankly.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I tell people my kids, as they get older, I'll probably have to scale back a little bit. So I'm trying to get it all in while I can. And,
got it.
And then, but my wife and I both have our own hobbies, and we really enjoy making sure that we get to be whole people and get to do the things that we love to do, and don't just get completely consumed by childcare.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think both of our wives also, I think, are very, they understand we like war games and we want to do them, and they're very permissive and very good, frankly, with us. So, I mean, we have to pull our duty and do our things, but when it's game time, it's pretty good.
They understand that we enjoy what we do, and it's not an unhealthy thing that we do, right?
Right.
Yeah.
There could be a lot of worse things that we do.
Oh, yeah.
So they're like, yeah, sure. And with family, so it's, if he comes over to play, like, oh, our kids get to play together. So, it's a bit easier for us as well.
That's nice.
Well, in fact, yesterday we had Alexander hosted a barbecue, and we took my youngest daughters over and played with his 2 sons, and we ate hot dogs and hamburgers and bratwurst and potato salad, and then played a 4-hour war game. So yeah, we had a great time with that.
It's just behind my laptop. I'm still working on it.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, we want to get that back to the table. There's several other things we want to try. So, but anyway.
Yeah, no, I know how it is. Believe me.
Yeah. Well, Jason, I think we'll go ahead and maybe get started. I could probably do chit chat all night. Frankly, I like to talk, but I mentioned earlier that you're very busy, not only in your personal life, but also in your, hobby life, although it seems like it's becoming kind of a full-time job for you.
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Isn't that the dream?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm a software engineer, so I've done pretty well. I'm a young guy. Most people who meet me, they hear I do what I'm doing, and if they've just emailed with me, they think I'm like 50, 55, second career or whatever. No, very much first career. I'm 34, so I've got a long, wet road. And so I think Gene, Gene's all about building teams, and so he brought me in and was kind of like, here's my vision. Here's how I think you can help Luke and Rachel. And I just bring the passion. I love this stuff. I would do this all day long. And they bring business, marketing, game development. They're good at all those things too. So I'm hoping this is something I can do as a career post software. That's my goal.
Yeah.
But I don't like to talk about that too much publicly. It's kind of more of a Yeah.
Sure. Well, I what an honor though that to have Gene and the family, the family business and the GMT family, and you've been invited in where a lot of pillars of our hobby have broached that threshold. The Mark Hermans, the Mark Simoniches, there's so many guys that. Yeah, that's impressive. So I've been impressed with you. We've had, like I said, many conversations, and I've always enjoyed your no nonsense attitude. And if you say you're going to do something, you do it. And
except for those
always
previews that I never.
That's fine. No, that's not why I said that. But you have worked really hard to, as a developer, to get the word out for the guys you're working for. So maybe that's where we could start. Tell us how you got into the development business. What made you want to make that jump? And then you've worked with some big games and some good designers. I mean, once again, Mark Herman, Volko Ruhnke on Fall of Saigon, and you've worked with Mike Berticelli, and
yeah.
I mean, the list goes on, right? But why did you want to get into that, Jason?
It's funny because Mike's really the reason. Mike Berticelli, I met him at a GMT warehouse weekend, and and he was just super kind. He let me play. I tested Tank Duel, and I was pretty new to wargaming. It wasn't something that I had. And Mike was kind to me when I wasn't a wargamer, and he was kind to me asking stupid questions. And he was kind when I made suggestions to change the game that were not good ideas. But I think I also made some good suggestions, and he saw potential. And so he said, "Hey, if you want to be involved in this, it's an all-volunteer army." That's his catchphrase. He says that all the time. And he said, you can get involved. You can be as involved as you want. And so I was out of work at the time. I was in between jobs. So I just went home, took the Vassal module and started playing it. And I couldn't stop playing it. And so once I played it a couple times, I figured out why my ideas were bad. But the next thing I knew, I was calling him and saying, "Mike, I know how to play this solo. I figured out how to do a solo system for this." And that ended up in the box. And so that's a really weird way to get involved, is to be like, go from nothing to designing a solo system. But Mike was with me every step of the way. And one of the things I love to tell people is that solo system, I'm the solitaire system developer. I didn't do the whole design. It's 75% Mike's work because it's based on his system, and then he had to shepherd that thing. He had to do all kinds of work on it to help get it right. And so, if I see further, it's only because I stand on the shoulders of giants, and Mike is one of those giants. He's so good at game development, and he's a great designer. And so I'm privileged to work with him. So that's how I got started, and that's how I got involved. And then he introduced me to Coin. I'd never played a Coin game, and he was the series developer at that time, and he taught me Cuba Libre, and he said, you should know this system. It's important. It reflects a trend of where games are going. And it was from there. It was kind of history.
Yeah. Well, that game you worked on first with Mike was Tank Duel, and
correct.
Right. And the Robota solitaire mode is what you're referring to. Right. Well, what was the thing that you loved the most about coming up with that solo system? And you also mentioned, I'm not a war gamer. What kind of games did you play to even get to a GMT weekend at the warehouse?
I want to circle back to that. That's the interesting journey.
Yeah, so this is funny. So the first war game I ever played is sitting right behind you, Alexander. It's Virgin Queen.
Oh, okay.
That's jumping at the deep end right there.
Yeah, so my friend Michael was like, "Hey, let's go to this. There's this thing, it's all these heavy games." And at that time, I think we'd played Twilight Struggle, and I liked War of the Ring. That was one of my favorite games.
Yeah,
I say I wasn't a war gamer, but I played games that were very close to war games. StarCraft, the board game, is one of my favorite games of all time. Fringes into wargaming territory. So we decided to go do that, and so we went on he was like, "There's this site, Consim World. They have a thread where people are saying what they're going to play. We should get involved." And so I signed up for a game of Virgin Queen with Michael, and Kurt Keckley was playing with us.
Okay,
and so I got to
Fields of Despair.
He's a friend of mine now because of that.
Okay,
and Jason Bailey, I think, was teaching the game. No, not Jason Bailey. Jason, I'm spacing on his last name now, and I feel bad about this. But anyway, he was teaching the game. Super kind guy. Taught us the game, taught us how to play, walked us through all the rules. It didn't hurt that I won. And then and then he taught us how to play.
Who were you playing as?
I was the Holy Roman Empire.
Okay.
So nice, easy tech victory. Didn't have to worry too much about the rest of what was going on. I was kind of isolated out. All the other people were fighting each other, and I was just cool. I'm just gonna stay under the radar and win that way. So
yeah,
that night he taught us how to play Combat Commander, and it was phenomenal. It was like my eyes were opened to things that I had not imagined. Like I had seen these hex encounter games mostly in thrift stores. I love to thrift, and I'd always just pass them by because I was like, "There's nothing in here that's going to appeal to me." But playing Combat Commander showed me how narrative comes out in games, and it taught me a lot about my misconceptions about what a war game was. So that was kind of, it was like a drug from that point on. Like I couldn't stop thinking about how to get the next narrative. Like what's the next story that I'm going to get to experience.
We're losing you. There you came back. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. My internet.
That's okay.
Tonight.
That's okay. I would say our experience is somewhat similar in that we had played some of the lighter, I would call them Ameritrash war games, Axis and Allies and other type things. And, Alexander, lo and behold, brought this weird looking flipping game that I'm like, what are we playing here? And it was Twilight Struggle. And not a war game. We have that discussion all the time. Not really a war game. But I remember thinking, you mean you can have pieces that represent a concept or an ideal that is now in effect and it drives things? I'm like, this is so amazing. So, Alexander, we then jumped to what? Churchill?
We did Twilight Struggle, we did Churchill, Labyrinth, and then it was Wilderness War, Empire of the Sun, and Combat Commander. So we fell into the rabbit hole quite quickly from there.
Very quick.
That's basically my first handful. I mean, Churchill, I played Churchill that first weekend, and then I bought Wilderness War while I was there.
Okay.
And that took me a little longer to get my head around then. But
it's the same experience.
But as soon as I did, I was hooked. And no surprise, Volko is one of my favorite designers.
He's excellent.
So, yeah.
But it's just amazing to hear your story, kind of, because I would say, once again, we liked them. I just didn't grow up in an Avalon Hill family where we bought all the old games. And unfortunately, I wish that we had, but we played other types of games. But I hear a lot of those experiences from a lot of the people that we run with. It's kind of the same thing, that GMT games became this addiction in some ways, that it's like, oh, I got to get the next game. Oh, yeah. I remember that first year I had 0 GMT games, and by the end of the year, I think I had 12.
And we had $0 as well.
Yeah, and now I have an entire shelf full of GMT games back here, and we've played even more than that. But I don't know, it's just fascinating. And I think about people like you. You have the ability to help people enjoy that stuff. To see, oh, this doesn't work, or this would work better, and you make it more enjoyable for us. So thank you for what you do. I don't know if you think of it that way. Maybe you don't. You seem like a humble guy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think game development is kind of not something we talk a lot about in the industry. It's just something that happens or doesn't happen. And design as a discipline is talked about a lot. Like you have people like Jeff Engelstein writing books about principles of game design, which are great books. But where's principles of game development? Like that is an interesting field in itself. And so as people start to opt into development and think about, I want to be a developer. I don't want to be a designer as much as, or like maybe I want to do both, but I want to experience development as an independent discipline. I think that is where you start to realize how important a developer is to the game's story and to telling the story clearly. And so, to your point, I think I like to look at myself as an editor. My job is to help a designer say, here's the story I want to tell. Is the game telling it? Is it telling it clearly? And are there things in the game that break the narrative and make it tell a story I didn't mean for it to tell? And there's a lot of ways that can happen. You can tell a story that is contrary to your thesis, you can tell a story that is offensive. You can tell a story that is uninteresting. And a good game developer will help you see all of those things and fix them before they get out in the world, and then you have to deal with the fallout of it. So that's why I love doing development. It's like I get to take somebody on that last 20% of the journey and see their vision go from whatever their prototype is, the ideas in their head, to real concrete product that they can put on a table and see other people play and enjoy. And that's really special.
Yeah.
And it's a really important 20% as well. I think it's hard to undersell that. Because we all know you can see a game that has not gone through enough development. We all know what they are, and it's very easy to see that. And so I think with how hard they're trying to like lean into development and expanding the team that you're on, I think it's like good news for everyone involved. I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting. I think you're exactly right. Game development is never mentioned unless it's obvious that it wasn't done enough or well. And we have the same thing. I don't know that we play a game and we go, oh man, those developers, they knocked it out of the park. Because we didn't notice. You know, the work that they did made it so we didn't notice. But then, man, when we haven't, it's like, this is not working, or I can see this is a problem. And that's hard for us because we've never designed or made or created. We just critique other people's stuff. And that's a challenge in and of itself.
Yeah.
It's an interesting world, that concept. So how many games have you designed? Like I said, I know we talked mainly about Tank Duel at the beginning, but you're getting up near 8 or 10 now, right?
So there's 8 or 10 games that I have design elements in. I've designed no published games. So, but Tank Duel, I'm the solitaire developer, so that system is my origination. And the expansion for that, Tank Duel North Africa and the expansion Tank Pack are coming out relatively soon. They're at the printer right now. So I extended the solitaire system found in Tank Duel so that it can work in North Africa. So sun, sand, heat, haze, all that stuff. And then I have started working on the series of solo systems for these small CDGs that are coming out. So you guys love Fort Sumter. I know that. It's one of your games that you've talked about a lot. The second game in that series, the Final Crisis series, is Red Flag Over Paris by Fred Serval. And I worked with Luke Billingsley on the solitaire system that's in that game. So it is completely new, not based on anything else. And probably the thing that I'm proudest of that I've done up till now, to be honest. It's a really tight opponent. It's a lot of fun, and it means that you have a game that you can play twice during your lunch break, solitaire, which is always a lot of fun. And then I've decided that one of the things that we want to do is really bring the solitaire experiences to these smaller games. So I also did a bot for Flashpoint South China Sea by Harold Buchanan. I'm working with Jason Matthews on a solitaire system for Twilight Struggle Red Sea. I worked on a solitaire system for I'm working with Gunnar Holmback on the solitaire system for Weimar Republic, which is a 4-player CDG that's coming. And then Bruce Mansfield and I have been working together on all of the solitaire systems for Coin. And so you guys know Gandhi came out with a new style of coin bot with cards. We call that the Jacquard system. So that's named after the loom, the programmable Jacquard loom. It was programmed with punch cards. So we thought, card programming. This is perfect. So the Jacquard system is Bruce and I. And Bruce is the designer on that, and he did most of the design work. But he'll be the first to tell you it was really a team effort. We all, Scott Mansfield, Bruce Mansfield, myself, and then we have a new developer for that system, Kevin Crooks, who's helping us get it set for Fall of Saigon. So that is just a ton of fun to work on that team. Like just like Gene, I love building teams. So 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 yeah, I don't know. I have a lot of stuff coming in the next year that has my name somewhere in the design credits. But up until now, really, I've been focused on the coin series, and I've been focused on supporting specific designers. So Mike Berticelli, Trevor Bender, John Butterfield, and then the coin series. So
yeah. Yeah, I know. I know you also. At least Gene has spoiled the fact that you're working on a game that will have your name as the designer. Correct?
Yeah. Yes, that's true.
And we're expecting tonight that you will tell us what that game is and what it's all about. So go.
Yeah, actually, I will. You know what? That's great.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yes, we got it, Alexander.
We had a
It's
bet
my
going on
game.
whether or
I
not
can do
you
whatever
would.
I want with it. So when I was working on South China Sea with Harold, I really it's a really unique system. You can play each card in your hand 4 different ways. So you can play it for the ops points for the event. You can play it to score a specific country or scoring paradigm. And then there's a mode match on the card. So if the top card of the discard pile is your event, you can discard a card from your hand with a matching mode to trigger that event. And I just love this system. I think it's super interesting. It's very flexible. The fact that you have to use a whole turn and a card to score means scoring always has an opportunity cost. So timing becomes really critical in the round. And the more I played this, the more I just couldn't get out of my head. This is a great model to talk about the Cuban Missile Crisis. And so I had been reading Michael Dobbs' book, 1 Minute to Midnight, and I just started sketching out notes. And within a night or two, I had the framework for what is going to be Flashpoint Cuban Missile Crisis. So Harold's on board with it, and so we're really excited about it. There's some interesting differences that have to be made when you go back 60 years in time to the way that you think about the game, not necessarily because of the differences in technology, but because of the difference in setting. So the Cold War has a huge influence on the way that these things work. And one of the things that I was struck by in the book, 1 Minute to Midnight, was it seemed to be really hard for Khrushchev and Kennedy to talk to each other. They didn't have the red phone yet. And everything was shouting. It was like Khrushchev would do something and Kennedy would see the effect of what Khrushchev, and then he would have to guess what Khrushchev had told people to do so that he could respond in the right way. And that bluff back and forth is a really big part of what characterizes the kind of pre-hotline era Cold War. So that's what I wanted my game to really be about. I wanted it to show the kind of plotting pace of decisions, but at the same time, the fact that almost everything that happened was out of the control of people making the decisions. And that's an interesting tension to do in a game, and it's something I'm still working on getting exactly right. But Bruce Mansfield is developing the game, and so he was actually able to come see me here a little while ago. And while he was here, we played it a bunch, and we just kept coming up with new ideas and ways to kind of enhance that narrative and give it that feeling of like having to guess what your opponent was going to do so that you could preempt it, or being stuck with a course of action that you don't necessarily want to take anymore, but it's too late. You're already committed. So yeah, really interesting.
Okay. Well, it's interesting. We just played yesterday Brandywine from the Great Battles of the American Revolution, and it has that tactical matrix, little mini deck of cards, and 4 of the cards I think you can do whether you have a leader or not, and then there's 2 that you have to have a leader, and then there's another 2 that you have to have a leader, and you have to have some open maneuvering ground. And it sounds kind of like a similarity, that there's some guessing, some double entendre where Alexander's trying to say, well, you're going to do this, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Boom, and so we love those kind of things, that guessing, interactive, back and forth.
Trying to mentally outwit your opponent with only the information that you can see. I love that in a game. Love it.
Yeah. So the main inspirations for that are Watergate by
Oh yeah,
Very fun
Kramer.
game.
Yeah. And
yep. Matthias Kramer.
yep.
Got it on my shelf right over there.
And
There it
then
is.
actually, this is going to seem really weird, but bear with me. One of the things that we're trying out in the game right now, this may or may not make it into the final product, but we're playing around with the idea of having to commit to playing a card one turn ahead of time. So after you finish your turn, you have to pick the card you're going to play next turn. To try to give some sense of the way that time interacted with the orders that were given in their execution. And I got that from Killer Bunnies.
Okay.
Really random party game that goes on way too long, and then the winner is actually completely random at the end. But the one interesting part of it to commit a turn ahead of time, and I thought that was neat and an evocative way to tell that story. So it required me to redesign literally everything in the game to accommodate it, but so far so good.
Well, good. Well, I think it's impressive that you've come from not really playing many war games to going to a weekend at the warehouse to making all these friends, developing these games, and now hey, you're designing a game, and I look forward to playing it, frankly. So
yeah.
I look forward to Flashpoint South China Sea as well. We played that at Gen Con. My gosh, Alexander, that was 2019?
It was 2018.
With Harold, yeah. And we had a blast.
That was a long time ago. It might not look anything like what we played.
Yeah. My guess is it's changed a little bit, but yeah, it's amazing to see the growth of those games, even over a year or a year and a half. It takes forever, right, to develop and design a game.
It really does. I mean, there's no way to rush it. If you try to go fast, you're not only not gonna tell the story you want to tell, but you're gonna produce something that is hard to play. But Harold will tell you. So he finished Liberty or Death, and he was like, okay, I want to do another game, but I'm going to do something small so it's easy and I can get it done and just keep it simple. Well, he picked the hardest kind of game to make. A simple game like Flashpoint South China Sea, which, I mean, again, simple is relative, but it's similar in complexity to Watergate. Getting those games right is so hard because every little thing that happens in the game has so many network effects. And he realized he had actually picked a super hard project. And so it just took a long time to get the game right. And so one of the last decisions that was made in the game, did the version you guys played have the crisis cards?
I don't believe so.
On the map? Okay, so there was the version of the game that I played had these crisis cards that got put on the map, and you could put influence on them. And then if you, at the end of the round, you would resolve it. And if it got resolved for one player, they usually got a point and some kind of bonus. And the idea was to give more space for players to play, more choices for them to make. But in practice, what ended up happening was that the crisis either got ignored or it became all-encompassing and took over the rest of the game, and it destroyed the narrative. It's like, there's a crisis happening, but we're either ignoring it or we're not actually dealing with the South China Sea. Either way, it's bad. And so once he cut that, a lot of the rest of the game started to come together and get much richer. And I think that was probably late 2019 that got taken out of the game.
Yeah.
And then 2020 happened, which is basically a time vortex. And, and now we're here. So
Interesting. So GMT1, you've talked about some of the design. What do you guys have upcoming? What other new projects are you looking at? I know you're doing the Irregular Conflict series and those solo engines. What else are you guys looking to do?
So the next thing that's going to get to you is going to be Space Corp Ventures. So that's a John Butterfield game. It's the expansion to Space Corp. I developed that game. So I think you guys probably know Chad and Kai Jensen developed Space Corp. And when Chad passed, Kai bowed out at developing the rest of them. So I took that over. And so I just got my printer proof, actually. So this is one of the player mats that's going to be, this is Inframax, has a fourth infrastructure slot here on the edge of the board. So that's its big power. And then the back of every one of these boards has a solo corporation, which, looks pretty similar, but it's for solitaire play.
Yeah.
And 4 of the corporations have a solitaire AI that is run on the back of the board. So when you set up, you pick one of those 4 AI corporations, and then you set up your corporation, and the AI corporation plays, and it has powers and special rules that govern it. And it gives a lot of variability to the game. Super fun. And you guys know John Butterfield is a great solitaire designer. He's a lot of fun. His games are great. So that is the next thing that you're going to get.
Okay.
And that's not going to have a GMT1 label on it, but it's definitely a GMT1 product. That actually was done before GMT1 was announced. So
yeah.
And then you mentioned Fall of Saigon. That is on my table to be finished. So I just got the playbook and I got the final set of design on the bots from Bruce. So we're all in layout and art for that, and we're just double checking our examples of play.
Yeah.
So that'll be the next thing up after that.
With Fall of Saigon, do we know one way or the other how they're going to represent the armor in the physical components?
Yeah, they are. They look like tall houses turned sideways.
Okay, nice.
So it's got like a pointy front, and then it's a rectangular block behind it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we played with Mark Herman and Dan Pancaldi with No Enemies Here at WBC. That was 2019, and Mark had little cool plastic tanks. So we're like, man, put these in the game. These are awesome. But we knew that wouldn't necessarily fit.
I highly recommend finding 8 red plastic T-54s.
And
8 yellow patents, and just go to
put
town.
them in.
Good luck finding those. But
that is an official variant if you can find it.
Yeah, I'm telling you, we had a blast with that game. We actually, we love Dan. He was not used to the coin system and how it works. And he was kind of doing totally ahistorical actions, and it was kind of working for him until the crap kind of hit the fan at the end.
Yeah.
And, the VC and the NVA kind of bushwhacked him. And I think, Alexander, you and I were fighting over like 1 point.
Yeah,
and
I lost that game by 1 point. And you won by 1 point. And and everything was in Saigon, and it was a nightmare.
Yeah, I swear every piece on the board was in Saigon, and it was really pretty funny. But I do want to thank you, Jason, for you and Steven Rangazis putting those history behind the cards. Man, that series was fantastic. It got my juices flowing. I read each one of them 3 or 4 times, not to mention when I was editing and putting everything together. So I thought about that, because when that thing comes out, that's going to be one of the first things Alexander and I get to the table. We love Fire in the Lake. It's one of it's my favorite coin. I think is it your second favorite, Alexander? You like Pendragon better, right?
I think Fire in the Lake's the best.
Fire in the Lake.
My favorite. It's my favorite.
Yeah. We just have a great time with that.
Yeah, you guys will have a blast with it. I mean, you can play so that game went through a lot of playtesting, and we kept running into problems with trying to make such a complex expansion for a complex game, and just getting the interactions right was hard. So the Paris Accords that happen at the end of the regular Fire in the Lake game that enters into kind of the Fall of Saigon part of the game, getting the incentives right there was hard. And actually, what was the breakthrough for that was a conversation about the actual talks themselves. And if you know anything about it, you know that there were 2 tables that were made at the talks. There was a round table and like a rectangular table. And the argument over which table should be used and why was key to how the talks ended up playing out. And you ended up, at the end of the day, it was the NVA and the United States were at the main table, and they were the 2 negotiating parties. And then there was like this secondary table that wasn't like the real table. It was like the children's table. And that's where they put the VC and the Arvin. and they weren't really able to make too many decisions. So in the talks themselves, the only people who make choices are the US and NVA. ARVN and VC don't make any choices. They have to completely just convince or force the hand of their partner to get the talks to go their way. And the talks incentivize that. So if the US retreats and the NVA stay at war, that's great for the NVA and it's good for the VC. Less good for ARVN and the US. And so we made a matrix of kind of how does every power want things to turn out? And then we made sure to align the incentives that way because before there was a pretty strong incentive for the US to retreat to the point that US players would intentionally airstrike spaces to drop support so that they would be able to avoid mandatorily staying at war.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh, that doesn't
work. Yeah. That really is a great. Yeah, that's a great game, and really looking forward to that iteration. I know we've been on for about 45 minutes. Tell us about the Irregular Conflict series. I know you're working with different groups, and then you're doing the GMT1 stuff. To me, we have talked a lot about this. We love coin, and this is, it's really coin light. But tell us what your thoughts on that Irregular Conflict series is.
Absolutely. So there's two things that led to the Irregular Conflict series. One of them is there's a Discord where coin people hang out, and it's pretty big. I think there's like 1,000 people in it. And it became a hotbed of design ideas. And so we were just seeing tons of ideas for coin games start to percolate. And some of them were traditional coin games. Some of them were non-traditional coin games that still depicted insurgency in some capacity. But then we were getting games where people were talking about ideas of just taking coin and doing something completely unrelated to coin. Like take the card eligibility order and the sequence of play, but bolt it onto like a fantasy game with a hex grid and like arena style combat or something. That's a made up example, but you get the idea. And we were kind of like, well, what would we do with that game? Like, it's not a coin game, but it's also not a coin game. So it led to this big argument about what is coin at the end of the day. What defines coin? And so I'm the series developer, and Volko is the series designer, and I took a point of view. And the point of view we took was the control, support, opposition, and active and inactive pieces are the real coin model. So disparity of force, the ability to use force, the ability to hide units, those kinds of things are what the core parts of coin are, and then the hearts and mind aspect. The sequence of play and the event cards are window dressing. But people love that window dressing. It's super awesome window dressing. So how do we make that available to people to use in games that aren't about coin? And so the Irregular Conflict series is the answer to that. It's coin mechanics, kind of. We're not limiting it to that, but that's where it's starting, with things that have nothing to do with coin. So Vijay Nagara, the first game in the series, superficially looks like coin. If you just look at it, you'll go, oh, there's that. It's an area map. There's population. There appears to be some type of control, and the coin sequence of play is right on the map. So it must be coin. But once you dig deeper, the model is not coin at all. The way tributary states work, not coin. The way that victory points are tracked, nothing like coin. And so that's maybe one step away from coin. The next game is going to be another step away from coin. The game after that is going to be maybe 3 or 4 more steps away from coin.
Okay.
And the goal being to give designers a sandbox where they can take the things they love about coin and experiment with them and not have the coin label slapped on their box and create expectations that shouldn't be there.
Okay. I think that's a really good explanation right there. So
And
what is that next game? Yeah, go ahead.
Good luck with that one. I'm not The flip side of that is true as well. So I have another game that I'm working on, and it is a coin game that may never see the light of day, but it's coin without the event cards and without the sequence of play. It's the control, support, opposition, and the force types, but it's a CDG.
Okay.
And so the amazing thing is how well it works, because the model of the coin model, the insurgency model itself, is very robust. And so you can start to layer new things on top of it mechanically and come up with a different kind of game. But at the end of the day, you're really still playing coin. And I think that might be something for 2-player coins to think about a lot, is the sequence of play with the every other turn eligibility or the giving up initiative is interesting, but it might be more interesting to give people tempo variance through ops on cards. You'll see a lot of different player coin coming, a lot of different approaches to tempo and how you'd model that in a game and things like that. So ICS is kind of the sandbox, and definitely more experimental, and I think kind of more interesting in some ways. So I'm excited about what's coming there.
Cool. Well, Alexander, do you have any other thoughts or comments?
No, only that I'm very grateful that you took some time out of your day to do this. Unironically, about probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, some people on our from our Patreon Slack channel were like, "Hey, have you guys considered getting Jason Carr on?" and Grant had already sent you that email. I was like, they know, like, people know. People want to know what this GMT one is and who this new developer guy is, because they see the things that you read, whether that's through the articles that GMT puts out or through the card series that you've had on our blog, which we're grateful for. And they are very interested in what GMT has to offer that's new and exciting. I think that's one of the big hallmarks of GMT, is that their portfolio is so wide, but typically very good in all those directions. And I think it's a credit to your design team to help move that forward as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. Is I should definitely shout out to those guys like Ken Kuhn and Joe Dewhurst, who do a ton of development work for GMT. It's really, they're part of the lifeblood of the company at this point. And it's really interesting. I know I love the wargaming hobby. I love the wargaming industry. There's really a couple different kinds of companies. Like, there's the places that are just do it all themselves, and they end up making, they make great games. I'm thinking about like the Russells at Hollandspiel. Like, I love their games. I love their games.
Yeah.
And their development style is so stamped on those games. It's just like so obvious that they are the ones who are like doing the work in the love. And I love it. Or like Roger Miller over at Revolution Games. And like, his stamp is on those games, and it shows how much he loves and develops each individual title to make sure that it meets what he wants the game to be like. But I don't know of many companies where they're building a staff of developers. And so I'm excited to be doing that, because I think it ups our game, and it means that we can scale, because we're doing a different thing than those companies are. Like, I own almost all their games. I love those folks, but they're doing something different, and they'll tell you they're doing something different. We're trying to continue to produce a bunch of coin games. And so to do that and to do it well, to make tons of CDGs, to make the Irregular Conflict series, to make solitaire games through GMT1, we got to get people. And we got to get people who are passionate about the games. And so those two guys are just awesome. And I love them. They are so much fun to work with.
I had an opportunity. I played Pendragon with Joe Dewhurst last year sometime through the Coin Players this Discord, and super intelligent guy, creamed us in the game, but he was like, he's showing off his other coin games that he's designing. I'm like, oh, I know there's so much cool stuff in the works.
And his game, just his big coin game, the Pure Land, just went up on P500, and it's so much fun. And I will say, if you like Pendragon, you like that style of game and that style of conflict, the Pure Land, it kind of evokes some of the same feeling. It's a little bit more complex. It's a little bit bigger game. Not than Pendragon. I mean, it's on the more complex end. It's more like a Fire in the or a Pendragon or a Distant Plane. Like it's a full meaty experience to play.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, looking forward to that one. I know Joe and I are working on some history behind the card segments, and he's helping me with some other interviews with the Vision Agara guys. And so, yeah, I made this comment in one of my posts on the blog maybe a month ago. This wave of new talent coming into GMT to me is very impressive because you've got the people that everybody loves, the Volkos and the Hermans and the Buchanans, and now you got people like yourself, Joe Dewhurst, Morgaine. I mean, there's so many cool people that are uber talented, and they're, fortunately for all of us, they're putting their talents to this use rather than maybe something else that would make them more money. I hate to say that, but we're in a niche market, and Alexander and I, we don't do this because we feel we're going to get rich.
Oh, exactly.
We do it because we love history and we love the conflict sims, and we just enjoy doing what we're doing. So I'm really, Fred Serval is also in that group of just really talented people.
Fred is such a talented designer that we had to give him 3 developers for Red Flag Over Paris. So he got myself, Joe, and Luke Billingsley as his developers for that.
Nice.
So
nice.
He's a legend. He's a legend.
Yeah. Well, I hope that he's going to put something else to cardboard and do some other games down the line. I hope. And I'm looking forward to Red Flag Over Paris. It's a very interesting looking game. Jason looks like he wants to say something about Fred and maybe upcoming games.
If you're looking forward to something from Fred, you just stay tuned. There's
okay. All right.
That's enough for me.
Yeah, I actually think I know it, but I won't spoil it. So we've talked. All right. Well, hey, we kept you long enough. It's been a pleasure. Jason, really have appreciated the opportunity to talk to you. And I frankly hope that one day we can meet you at a, GMT West or something and get a game in. But really appreciate it. And, this will go on our YouTube channel. So give it a week or two. Our hour with Mark Herman, I think, has, I want to say, 4,000 views and climbing. People just love to hear Mark Herman speak. The reality is we sat there the entire time and just kind of listened to him.
I watched it. It was great. I was laughing because I was like, this is the most Mark Herman interview I've ever seen.
Oh, and it's funny because we've played games with him at WBC on 2 different occasions, and I always feel starstruck that I'm just sitting there I'm supping from the dews of distillation of knowledge that's coming off his,
when he
persona.
Shut up, just listen to him.
Yeah. Anyway, Jason, it's been a pleasure. We look forward to in the future, hopefully getting to know you a little better.
Yeah, and we could do this again sometime if you guys want. If it goes well, let's do it again.
Absolutely. Yeah, you've got a lot of good stuff, I'm sure, to talk about. We could have went for another hour.
Oh yeah.
But well, hey, thank you.
Appreciate it. Take care. Have
Yeah.
a good night.
Thanks.